Subnautica Below Zero, keep on wanting to say Sub-Zero, is a very controversial sequel to one of my favorite survival games. You're back on the same planet as the first game, but this time, you're there intentionally, to look for your sister or something. Not important. This time we drop down into the Arctic region of the planet, and quickly we have to find a way to survive and to keep warm. Despite the ice and frigid temperatures here, the sea life is thriving. Beneath the waves, you wouldn't even know that it's not a tropical paradise upstairs. Your main goal in this game is to find out what happened to your sister, along with an additional plotline. Neither of these are going to be covered or spoiled throughout the rest of this video, but we will be going to some endgame areas that you might consider to be spoilers in and of themselves. In this video, I want to collect every single egg in Subnautica Below Zero and then hatch them in my kick-ass aquarium. But first, I need to build that aquarium. Building in this Subnautica is basically the same as the first one. The biggest difference is that materials take forever to get in the sequel. One of the main reasons for this is the sea truck. Instead of a giant mobile base that we had with the Cyclops, we get a modular submersible with way less carrying capacity. Now I know you want to watch yet another YouTube guy start a brand new game and harvest materials for the 50th time over, but I went ahead and did all of this ahead of time. What I did differently this time was that I set up a bunch of small remote mining bases near areas that were very resource rich. This way I can bring my prawn suit down there, load up on a ton of ore, and then store it locally instead of transporting it, since we don't have an ability to transport all of it at once. Or do we? More on that in a sec. I'm at the point now where I have to bring all these resources to a central location, and I have to pick that location. In my last video, I picked the deepest part of the game. On one hand, it's one of the hardest places to build due to the water pressure. On the other hand, I thought it looked really cool. In this video, it's all about vibes. I just want it to look cool. I don't care about the difficulty at all. The deepest part in Sub-Zero is kind of cool, but it really just doesn't have the same appeal of the Lake of Fire of the last video. I was between two different biomes for this. The runner-up is the deep lily pad cave. I love the bioluminescence and the warm glow that the anemones give to the area, but ultimately I landed on one of the starting areas, the twisty bridges. There's something about this biome that I just love. The spiraling bridges covered in all the little dots of bioluminescence, all the different plants and animals, it's so detailed. First things first, I spent roughly an hour picking the right spot, and in 10 minutes I'll find a better one, but we're sticking with it. I'm going to start by building a super basic normal base so that I can upkeep my vehicles, and so I can transfer all of my resources to one location. Foundation, some hallways, nuclear reactor because I believe in clean energy. Fortify everything since I want to go big on the glass to show off the bridges, and a couple of spots to charge my vehicles, and a whole lot of lockers to store it all in. I'm also going to build a control room because I keep losing my base, and I need a little icon that tells me where it is. I know I said earlier that transporting materials in this game is a pain in the ass, but I found a solution. I went and made a choo-choo train out of storage modules. This way we'll be able to bring so much more ore back at once, and it'll make the building process so much faster. Perfect, I have the base completely done, and now it's time to move on to the aquarium. Oops, I did it again. I have completely ran out of glass. I have a million of like everything else you could possibly think of, but we can get the rest of the glass while we go and gather those eggs. Sea monkey eggs are found in sea monkey nests, which are found in sea monkey caves, which are guarded by sea monkeys. You know you're in the right area for one because the whole screen turns this shade of green. Also, they're huge and hard to miss. You can find these caves in the kelp regions and in the lily pad caves. It seems like the sea monkeys like to build their nests in caves with a ton of roots, which gives both of these areas kind of a similar vibe. The sea monkey nests usually have some sort of unlockable equipment embedded in the side of them, and these caves usually have a lot of oxygen plants, which means that in the early game, these can be a great source of upgrades and materials. Sea monkeys themselves are a super interesting creature. I mean, aside from just looking cool, but in the early game, they'll just come up to you and take your stuff right out of your hands. Funnily enough, they'll also pick up stuff that you drop on the ground and they'll swim around with it. After a certain point of the game, not mentioned here for spoiler reasons, the sea monkeys are going to stop yoinking your sea glide and they'll actually come and bring you materials. They look super happy when you accept their gift, so don't leave your boy hanging. The eggs themselves can be found within the nest. Just zoom around and check a bunch of nests. Eventually, you'll find a couple that have the eggs in them. And that is 2 eggs to the egg locker. The Pinnacharid, I think that's how you say it. This thing does need to wear a belt around its neck though, because it's left literally no impact in my memory in the last 22 hours that I've been playing this game. They're kind of like a cross between a seal and a bird since it has a beak, but then also a Viking longship because it has a ton of oars running along the sides of it. They can be found around the sparse Arctic areas, but we're going to be getting our eggs at the Arctic kelpland. These seal bird type guys are actually super dope. They just zoom around and you can actually interact with them. If you grab a fish and wield build it, they're gonna come up to you and they will take it right out of your hands. For getting the eggs, I just stumbled upon them by accident when I was getting the sea monkey eggs. They were just laying on the floor of the kelp region. Due to the color, they stand out pretty well against the soil, and I don't think you should have too much trouble finding them. Arctic rays give you 2 rays for the price of 1. They don't really look too much like a ray though. I don't know how to even really describe this guy. He looks like an alien fish. How about that? I don't know. It's like someone used a random number generator to add features to these things. Hey, cool though. These guys are in a ton of the biomes. I think the easiest place to see them is in the Arctic regions of the game, which might be a little bit confusing as the name of a biome since the entire game is pretty Arctic. These biomes are mostly sparse, super rocky, not a whole lot of vegetation, and they often have ice overhead. I think the ice overhead is actually an always thing, and it's the main defining feature here. Some of the sea critters even hang out up there, like those little penguin boys. The eggs themselves are everywhere. I kept picking them up on accident when I was farming glass earlier. Oh, and these guys glow in the dark. Hey guys, thank you so much for watching this far into the video. Brand new creator, as you can see by the channel. Make sure you do smash that like button and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more similar content. Thank you. Brinewings sure are some spicy boys. Get a little too close and they will blast you. It doesn't really do any damage though, it just freezes you in place for a little bit. And this is actually how they hunt other fish. They super cool this brine, hence the name, inside of them, and then they release it in a big jet to hunt fish. Appearance wise, they have these 2 wing-like fins on each side and a long snout to shoot you with. They're popular in the sparse Arctic region and can usually be found hunting near the icebergs, and I also found a bunch of them right around the edge of the kelp. These are another egg that I stumbled upon on accident. It was adhered to the bottom of one of the icebergs in the region. All you gotta do is look up. But I thought that was pretty cool because a lot of these other eggs are all on the floor where these ones are actually up on the ceiling. And just 2 more. Hey, this guy was in my last video, and this time he is back and as angry as ever. In Below Zero, these fish are still hiding inside of their flowers, ready to pop out and explode at you. Same thing as last time, just run towards them and past them because they lack the programming in order to do a U-turn. This is another fish that's present in like every single biome, at least if it has a cave. If there's a cave, they will be infested with these guys. They're also found on the cliff sides of one of my favorite biomes, the purple vents. The purple vents are a desolate, rocky biome that are covered by these craters which the game has named fumaroles. They kind of look biological to me, but according to the wiki, they're not. They'll grow this big bubble over the top of them, and once it gets too full, it will burst with this purple emission that looks like fire. It can burn you, but it's not terribly dangerous, and it hasn't done any damage to any of my vehicles. I just like the color contrast here, and in the caves, it gives off this really sick vibe with all of the purple flames everywhere. For the eggs, they're not on the floor like in the last game. You actually have to lure out the Crashfish and then raid the nest. Sometimes there's going to be sulfur in the flower just like the last one, but sometimes there will be a Crashfish egg. Ugh, bird sharks are my least favorite animal in Subnautica Below Zero. They suck big time, and I say this only because the area where I decided to build my base is infested with them. Every single time I was trying to plan out the next section or add reinforcements or whatever, they decided that this is the time to mess with me. Bird sharks are a mid-sized, aggressive shark, big mouth, pretty slow. Some nerd on the wiki counted the teeth and added it to the wiki for some reason. It's 26, by the way. The only really unique feature is the size of their jaw. It opens up big fully when it's about to bite you. Other than that, nothing to really write home about. Sorry, it's making me angry just talking about them. The eggs themselves are exclusively in the caves in the twisty bridges. The first few caves I checked didn't have any of them. I recommend you looking around and finding the ones with all the alien stuff out front that is glowing. I found a ton of them in this one and none of them in the other ones. Fun fact, this is our first big egg. All the other ones have been little guys. The Cryptosuchus is the biggest creature we're going to have an egg for so far. I think it's second biggest overall. They're more of a lizard than a fish since they have legs and not fins, but like everything else in this game, they have like this beak instead of a normal ass mouth. I don't get it. They're an aggressive predator and will attack you if you get too close. They're super easy to avoid those. They kind of just thrash around instead of making a beeline straight towards you. They're super loud and are constantly screaming into the void, so you can never miss being near one, which is exactly what my aquarium needs. Well, these guys are all over. The thermal spires biome is what I think of most when I think of them. This biome is ripe with volcanic activity. Up top, the volcanoes beneath have formed the spires for which it gets its namesake. And below, there's a network of caves which are constantly under eruption. It seems like these eggs are a little bit harder to find. They exist solely in these caves that I just mentioned. I had to go to a few different caves to find the 2 that I need to do my whole like Noah's Ark thing here. But just be careful not to get burned. I definitely totally didn't die at all getting this. Eye jellies are gigantic jellyfish, but with an eye in the middle of it. The top of them is see-through and the tentacles are bioluminescent. I think these are gonna look awesome in my aquarium ecosystem. Maybe I should do an entire separate jellyfish tank. It matters if I can find enough glass. They're found all over the glacial bay and glacial connection areas. They're mostly harmless and they exhibit some really interesting behaviors. When you are nearby, even inside of a vehicle, they will slowly drift towards you, but they won't outright attack you. If you do get too close, they will shock you, but only in self-defense. The eggs aren't really eggs. They're more like larvae. There are just fields of them in the glacial area by the cave that leads up to the ice. These are easily the coolest creature that we can hatch from an egg, and they're the only Leviathan that can be hatched. Also, I think they're the smallest Leviathan. They're completely passive and absolutely massive. It resembles an earth whale, but with some massive wings on it. Looking at this picture, it's kind of like an airplane, but in whale form. It can be seen grouped up with other whales, gulping down fish, and it's yet another creature that you can interact with. You can ride on their back, which I love, and you can also pet them, which makes them glow a little bit. Adorable. These are also in several biomes, but I wanted to introduce you to the Lily Pad Islands. You know, Subnautica Below Zero, although I do have some issues with it, they have some really cool biomes. This one's characterized by a bunch of rocks that have these floating lily pads attached to them. It's actually dragged the rock up off of the ground, and there's a bunch of these floating islands attached to these big-ass plants. On, around, and inside of these islands is where we will find our eggs. I personally had luck inside of the caves. Also, these eggs are massive. These have to be the only 3x3. I'll admit that I did not even know about this one before starting to make this video. They're super goofy looking and they remind me of those super ornate looking sea dragons. This guy, the leafy sea dragon. The lily paddler quite literally paddles around the lilies, as you might have seen in one of the clips in the last section. Kind of like the mesmer from the last game, they actually have this defensive hypnosis attack that will get your character zonked. The eggs themselves can be found throughout the crevice of this region, and this is the egg that I had the most trouble finding so far. It took forever, they seem pretty rare. Just keep on looking. I swear they're in there. I love the Pengwings. My only problem is that I can't release them in my base. They can go on land. They should be able to run around my base if I want them to. These are basically like Subnautica's version of a penguin. The main differences are the color being covered in fur and its head splits in half in this giant beak thing. Someone fact check me on this, but this might be the only creature in Subnautica that has 3 distinct growth phases, kind of like a Pokemon. You have the egg, you have the juvenile, and the adult, which are all distinct from each other and not just different sized versions. Penguins can be seen hunting fish underwater, but they spend a lot of the time up on top of the ice as well. They exhibit a lot of penguin behavior, like huddling for warmth, and if you steal their children, they will immediately become hostile and come and get you. I had a ton of trouble finding these eggs, so I looked up a guide on YouTube, and there is a certain iceberg in the West Arctic that has just a ton of penguins and a ton of penguin eggs. Anyways, if you do want to hoard a lot of penguins, I suggest just taking the babies. It's way easier than tracking down these eggs. These guys are super cool. Everything else that we're going to be hatching is some sort of fish or, like, I guess swimming creature. These will be our only crustacean. They're found along the seafloor in the crystal caves and the Kappa mining site. The mining site is quite literally that. There's a ton of mining infrastructure, ore deposits, and prawn suit fragments. The crystal caves are one of the endgame areas that are full of crystals and some big spooky leviathans. The crabs mainly mind their own business, but if you do get too close, they will gladly do battle with you. They can sometimes be seen punching rocks, hence the name. Likely, this is them trying to scare out rock grubs, which can be found in all of the areas that they inhabit. You know, while I'm here, let's just grab a few of these for the aquarium. These eggs are super easy to find. Just go to the Kappa mining site and follow the train tracks all the way down into that big room in the bottom, and they should be in these little depressed crevices. The Squidshark deserves an award. An award for most annoying creature. They're super loud, which, side note, why are so many of the creatures in Below Zero just constantly screaming? I really hope that in Subnautica 2 they find a way to fix this or just, you know, kind of cut it out a little bit. They are super aggressive and will attack you on sight. They also hit your vehicles with an electricity attack, so when you're in your vehicle, it will just temporarily disable it. It's just really annoying to be around. Appearance-wise, though, I love these guys. They're super cool looking. It's like in an alienified great white shark, but instead of terrifying jaws, their mouth opens up into a mess of tentacles. They occupy a lot of the deeper biomes, but the eggs are only located in the deep lily pad caves. The deep lily pad caves are full of bioluminescent anemones, and they give off a really warm and inviting glow. Despite being one of the deeper biomes, the whole glow and vibe makes it feel really cozy to me in here. Fun fact, there are actually only 2 of these eggs in the game in a static spawn. We will be grabbing both of them, but unlike the cuttlefish from the last game, these aren't the special creature egg from Below Zero. We'll be saving those guys for last. Titan Holefish are great. It feels like this one was a joke back when they were making the game, like, hey guys, what if there was a donut fish? But somehow it made it in the game. Holefish quite literally have a hole through the middle of them. You can even swim through it if you try hard enough. They're as dumb as a sack of bricks and kind of just drift around the Arctic regions. If you do need a little bit of oxygen, you can get it from the center ring of the Holefish. They lay their eggs inside the holes up in the bottoms of the icebergs to protect them from predators, and that's our last 2 eggs. Unless... Trivalves are meant to be kind of a pet to the character. They'll follow you around, they'll do little tricks, and they come in 2 different colors. Okay, enough of that. Before I dump all my eggs, let's take a quick look at the aquarium. I completely separated the aquarium from my base via this door. Employees only. I got myself a cute little reception area complete with tunes. Then to further separate the base from the aquarium, I wanted to set the main tube a good deal lower. This way you can also get a really good view upwards at all of the twisty bridges. I'll glass everything since I want the setting outside of the base to be just as much of the vibe as inside of the base. Here's the main aquarium. I went with the smaller room instead of the bigger room since you can make all of the walls glass. This way you can look both in and out at the same time. Across the way, you can see a little break room that I made, and my bedroom, which I filled with an obnoxious amount of plants. I chose this bed because it's the cool one. At some point in the playthrough, I made another aquarium. I filled it with red and blue fish. I thought this was gonna look cooler, honestly, a little bit on the disappointing side. And then if we follow this along, I dropped another aquarium 300 meters down into this cave so that I could dedicate it exclusively to the jellyfish. Now, it looks like if you release them outside of the base, which I've been doing, they all still try to converge on you, even when you're inside of the base. Now let's get hatching. In this game, we filled up 3 whole containers full of eggs. I hope it only takes me 2 trips, but we're about to see. Here's round 1, round 2, and the dreaded 3rd trip. And now we wait. Just kidding, I'm not gonna make you watch this. Everything has hatched except for the Squidsharks. Squidsharks are taking forever. Where is he? There's the little rock punchers. Oh my god, there he is. They keep on coming in and out of this like little middle thing, but they're so cool. There he is, my little crab man. Other than that, the rest of this is just full of all of my little babies. I'll give you guys another update once they're all fully grown. Dude, look at the sea monkey baby. It's so perfect. And here's my little Rocky guys all grown up. I'm not sure what happened. These eggs just like respawned out of nowhere. I kind of walked away for like 30 minutes and came back, but here are all my adolescent boas in my big ass aquarium. Looks like everybody's all grown up. Look at the gold trivalves. And I knew there was just one thing missing here. Perfect. Thank you guys so much for watching the video. If you did like the video, make sure that you do like the video and subscribe to the channel for more similar content. I'll see you in the next one.